my name is Christina. I am Whilst Iris Snaps on Instagram and Whilst Iris Snaps Designs, and this is a video about cross stitch. This is FlossTube number 3. I am surrounded by piles of stuff, good stuff, that I hope to share with you today. I'm trying to keep my videos to around the 20-minute mark, just because if they're any longer than that, they would literally take days to upload to YouTube. So let's see if I manage to get through everything. So I'm going to try and keep the format similar to videos number 1 and 2, in as much as I have some stitching from the archives, and it isn't a lavender and lace and mirabilia today, you'd be surprised to hear. Some FFOs, my new spring freebie. I'd like to chat to you about a sampler that I have already released, Elizabeth Cockerill 1831, and finish with a new release, Thirza Hudson 1825. So let's get cracking. Stitching from the archives. This is the CrossStitcher's Legacy. I believe it was a company called Kreative Keepsakes. I no longer have the chart for this one. I will put it in the drop down box and see if I can find a photograph of it for you, because it does quite often come up on eBay. The booklet gave you several options of how to stitch the poem, The CrossStitcher's Legacy. You could just stitch the poem, and I seem to remember it had quite an elaborate title with a pair of scissors and a needle and thread or something like that. Or you could choose to stitch it like this with the children in the bed, which I thought was quite cute. And then you also had options of which wallpaper to use, and I chose the floral wallpaper, and I went horribly wrong. I'm not going to point out where my error is. I should have unpicked it, but I didn't. And I got it framed, and I was so embarrassed by the error, I've never hung it. So that's my CrossStitcher's Legacy. It's been in a drawer for the last 24 years. So my next stitching from the archives is quite a personal one. This is a cross stitch from a photograph, and I'm so sorry, it was so long ago, I don't remember which company I used. I have a feeling it was DMC, but I might be totally wrong. But this is Hilary. Hilary was my dad's sister, and she died at 14 years of age in 1960 from leukemia. She died quite a few years before I was born, but she always felt like a huge part of the family. Nana would often talk about Hilary when we stitched together. And I stitched this for Nana and Grandad on their 50th wedding anniversary. My Nana and Grandad met at the end of the war. My Grandad was on leave, he was a royal engineer, and they met at a dance. And somebody had said to my Nana, stay away from the soldier. He likes to drink whiskey and he likes a joke, which is absolutely true. But she didn't listen, because they danced together that night. And in fact, my Grandad proposed that evening, and 3 weeks later they were married. And they were married for 53 years until my Grandad passed away in 1997. I'll put a photograph in of my Nana and Grandad on their wedding day. Now, what have I been stitching? At the beginning of every year, I make a promise to myself that I'm going to stitch a Christmas ornament every month, so that come Christmas I will have 12 new ornaments to hang on our tree, and I never managed to accomplish it. I think the record is around 7 or 8, which was last year, but this year I'm determined. So my ornament for January was a rather fabulous freebie from Hands On Design called Berries in Bloom, and I stitched this on 32 count sky blue linen from XG Design using the DMC threads. I don't usually stitch on 32 count and it's huge, but I'm pleased I did because I love it. And I finished with a simple red braid trim and a gingham ribbon and then some rather jazzy fabric on the reverse. And I do want to restitch this for my mum for Christmas. Mum, if you're watching, put your fingers in your ears. I really want to restitch it on this minty fabric from Foxglove and Lace Linen, who's on Instagram. Her fabrics are gorgeous. I think the DMCs will look beautiful on this. So that's another ornament that I've got to get done. So that's 13 and counting. So my ornament for February was Falala from Shepherd's Bush, and this was a kit that's stitched up super quick. I love the button that you get in the kit. I stitched the date on the reverse there and then finished with a beaded trim. And here's the kit. And in fact there's probably enough thread and fabric to stitch it again. No idea what ornament I'm stitching for March yet. I'll have to have a think about that. So another finish, although this wasn't a recent finish, I actually finished this in 2010. This is Rain Rain by La Di Da. And my husband's just framed it for me. I think it's taken so long to frame because I was a little disappointed when I finished it. I really wanted it to look like the front cover, so I ordered the call for fabric, stitched with the call for threads, and it doesn't look like the front cover of the chart. But now it's framed, I do really like it. I'll show you the front cover. The fabric is much more faded, but never mind. I think it was Penny from Lakeside Linens. No, Copper. Not Penny, Copper. Okay, so my freebie, it's a bit of a 2-for-1. I'll show you the front cover of the chart that can be downloaded from my website. So we have carrots and bunnies. Got them here to show. That's the carrots. The pins are from Just Another Button Company. I thought they were perfect for this. And then I've stitched Welcome Spring on the reverse. They smell of mini eggs. And there are the bunnies. And again, the pins are from Just Another Button Company. And then that one says Happy Easter on the reverse. Now, the trim is, the bunnies is Mingo from Lady.Creates and the carrots is Jack from Lady.Creates. And I stitched them on Zweigart 36 count smoky blue linen. When I showed them to my husband, he said, I do like them, but do you realise that the carrots are bigger than the bunnies? I said, oh Thomas, that doesn't matter to us in the cross-stitch world. We have cows that are as tall as trees and birds that are the same size as houses. It doesn't matter to us. Perhaps the bunnies are super small or the carrots are huge. You decide. But that can be downloaded from my website now. And I want to apologise if you did have a problem printing out the All Is Calm freebie from Christmas. It would appear that only certain Apple devices were affected. It has been fixed, but you will need to re-download, I'm afraid, from the website. But while you're there, download the Spring and Easter freebie too. Now, samplers, first of all, I'd like to chat to you about one of my previous releases, Elizabeth Cockerill 1831. I think Elizabeth was my third or fourth release from last year. And what I thought I would do is try and explain why I was drawn to Elizabeth's sampler using the original. Gosh, I've forgotten how huge it is. Nobody else wanted Elizabeth. I was the only one who bid on her. And as you can see, she's not in the best of conditions. She's not the prettiest of samplers, at least not in this condition anyway. And she's not the most detailed of samplers. But I think it was the verse and the fact that Elizabeth has had to adapt the verse to squeeze it in that really drew me to it. And the fact that it's a verse about friendship as opposed to family or religion. I'll see if I can read it from this angle. Sorry, you're going to get a really good view of our garden with the glare. Tell me, ye knowing and discerning few, where I may find a friend both firm and true, who dares stand by me when in deep distress, and then his love and friendship most express. How lovely is that? I'm going to have to set her down on my lap. She wears a tongue. So let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth. When I was researching her, she really got under my skin. I hate that phrase, that expression, but there's no better way of describing it really. She had a very sad start to life. Her mum, who was also Elizabeth, died bringing Elizabeth into the world. And Elizabeth was baptised and mum was buried in the same service 5 days after Elizabeth was born. The following year, Elizabeth's dad, Thomas, also passes away. I have a photograph of Elizabeth's parents' gravestones and I found the inscriptions in them rather poignant. Now orphaned, Elizabeth and her siblings go to live with Dad's sister, Alice Cockerill, who has married a farmer named Pheasant Griffith. What a name. And a pheasant married to a cockerel. Elizabeth is my mum's favourite sampler, and whenever I mention Elizabeth, she says, "Is that the pheasant and the cockerel sampler?" Maybe I ought to rename it. But I'd like to think that Elizabeth had a happy childhood being brought up alongside her cousins, because she chooses two of her cousins as witnesses to her wedding to one William Cox in 1848. And William isn't a farmer, surprisingly. He works for the Great Northern Railway and seemingly does rather well. He seemed to climb the ranks rather quickly. They do move around a lot. They moved from Gayton to Rugby, then to St Pancras in London, and finally settled down in Doncaster. They had 4 children along the way: George, William, Thomas and Caroline. And Elizabeth is living with Caroline's family when she dies, aged 73 in 1894. So let me show you my reproduction. And as you can see, it isn't square, unfortunately, because Elizabeth stitched her sampler on uneven linen. It didn't translate to a square sampler on even linen, but it's still very pretty nevertheless. As you can see, the verse is obviously much clearer on my reproduction. I stitched the reproduction on 35 count putty from Weeks Dye Works with Weeks Dye Works threads. And finally, my new release. Now, before I say her name, pronunciation, I've been told that her name should be pronounced Thirza, like the hard TH sound in Thirza. But in the one census that she was in 1841, her name has been mistranscribed as Thursday. So I think she pronounced her name Thirza. So introducing Miss Thirza Hudson, 1825. And as lovely as she is, I'm afraid there's not an awful lot I can tell you about her really. I know that she was born in Colne in Lancashire. Her parents were Sarah Greenwood and James Hudson. James was a cabinet maker by trade, but he and Sarah ran the Walton Arms, which was an inn in Colne. Thirza was one of 5 children, and she had just one son of her own, Richard, when she was 24. Thirza passes away at just 34 years of age. Her mum died the same year and her dad had died the previous year. And I'm unable to trace Richard. I don't know what happened to him. Thirza's brother, Hargreaves Hudson, moves his 10 children to Leeds the year that Thirza dies. So I'd like to think that Hargreaves took Richard with them. And in fact, it was from Leeds that I purchased Thirza's original sampler. I stitched the reproduction on 36 count Stars Hollow Blend from R&R Reproductions using Weeks Dye Works threads. Let me show you her original. Oh, there we go with the glare again. So there is quite a lot of stitch loss and the colours have faded, but it hasn't lost any of its charm. I love it. And let me show you the chart. There you go. And she's available from my website from today. Oh, and I think I managed to get through everything. Just a quick glance around. I think I have. Anything that I've missed will have to wait until the next video. Hopefully it won't be too long before I get to film again. Fingers crossed, the children are going back to school on March the 8th. So we'll see how that goes. So thank you so much for joining me and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.